nicely. It's the Drew and Fuse Show. The Drew and Fuse Show. The Drew and Fuse Show. Yeah, they clean up nicely. Yeah.
Hey, what's up, man? We're back.
We're back.
Feels
like I haven't seen you in a while.
For those of you guys don't know, we've been pumping these out. Fuse is going to be out of town, and so we got a couple in the books here for you guys. But these are all been really dope, and I hope you've been enjoying them.
Yeah. When you're listening to this, I should be just getting back home from Ireland. It'll be my second time visiting there. Going for something I still can't yet talk about, but soon we'll be talking about it. Excited for it and excited for the trip. Excited to talk with today's guest on the show. We got a great guest today. First, before we jump into it, I just want to say, if you haven't jumped on Direct Music Service yet, make sure you check out directmusicservice.com and use the code Drew and Fuse Show. It'll get you 30% off your first month of activation on the record pool. If you're not on it yet, go check it out. Also, in the description of the video below, we're going to have an affiliate link for the Photo Booth Supply Company. If you're in the market for a photo booth for any of your events, use that link. It won't get you anything, but it'll help the show out. Also, our friends over at Club Cannon, make sure you check them out. Use the code Drew and Fuse Show if you're looking to elevate your events or get some cryo effects. Club Cannon's the spot to go to.
Not sponsored here by Liquid Death yet, but soon we will be. So
not sponsored.
Not sponsored by Liquid Death, but we're pushing for it.
Yep. I think you're going to have to put on a Speedo and dance like Bert to get us that sponsorship.
It might happen, but I could definitely use some free waters. Today's guest is I'm a huge fan. I've known him for probably since high school. I've watched him in a bunch of bands. He's a local Long Beach guy. He's just continued to crush the game, and he's producing for some giant artists, and I'm stoked to have him on. So Fuse has a little bio. We'll read it and we'll bring him in.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with today's guest too. Drew was playing me a bunch of his music when I was out there, and it's a lot of stuff that I love. Yeah, I'm excited. He was one of the founding members of Chapter 11, and a member of the Brethren Daddies. He's done production with Sting and Shaggy, Matisyahu, Chronixx, Schwayze. He's got a new production company with David Foral from the Dirty Heads called Left Coast Sound. He's currently working with Roz1 of Long Beach Dub All Stars and Fat Mike of NoFX on a new album. Please help us welcome Jungle Josh.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being on the show with us today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, dude. Thank you so much. We were talking off camera, and last time I ran into Josh, I was playing a show with Sean Paul, and I saw Josh standing off the stage. I was like, "Yo, come up here! What are you doing here?" And he's like, he's just in production for all these guys. And did you know Sean Paul at that time?
I mean, obviously I knew him as an artist. I was a big fan of Sean Paul since before, when his first record came out, before he kind of became a pop sensation. But no, I never got to meet him. I was trying to meet him that night.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was an awesome show. But yeah, I remember seeing Sean Paul back in, I don't know, early 2000s, like play at UCLA when they used to have the free reggae festivals. And I realized he played like all my favorite songs, like back when he did Infiltrate and Deport Them and all those songs. And it was so funny because I remember looking all over for the record. And then, the next, I think a year or two later, he was on Atlantic and just huge. And you're just like, well, yeah, I guess that's how it works. Like I wouldn't stop until I found his album. And obviously there were a lot of other people doing that. But yeah, that was an awesome show. I remember that.
Yeah, my only funny story from that is, like you, I was trying to meet him at the same time, and he was walking off stage because he had bottles right next to us, and I had my wife and her friend was with me, and I was like, "Oh, Sean, will you take a picture?" And he was posing for us. He was like being super fucking cool, and all of a sudden my camera died, like right before I was about to take it. one person that's with me. I'm like, one more, give
Yeah.
us a camera, and every camera was dead. So it was like, it was one of those things. He's like, bro, I don't know what to tell you. And I'm
John's a
like, yeah,
vampire.
fair enough, dude.
You can't take a photograph of him. The phone just dies.
Yeah, he had his glasses on, and I was like, "Oh man, what do
Yeah.
you do?" Like, I was so sad.
Yeah, I remember
I was,
that was the album where he had like the mohawk and everything, right? Like he went all kind of punk rock, if I'm remembering.
yep,
Yeah, and it was
yep,
kind of weird because that was the first time I saw that. I was like, oh wow, this is a whole different Sean Paul.
yeah. He had ditched the dreads, and was he trying? I think he was dabbling with Major Lazer, but I don't think he had released anything yet. But he had like some stuff where he was dabbling with.
Did he ever? Did he ever do anything with Major Lazer? It seems like he would. You know, it seems like a something they would do, but I can't recall a song at this
There's
point.
one I just googled. They have one called "Come On to Me" featuring him. That's the only one that I see.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's.
I'm sure that is it a remix or was it on one of their albums?
It looks like it was on their album.
Oh, far out.
So he's just a feature.
Those guys are awesome. And so Major Lazer, they were a big inspiration and still are. Just like it's crazy because they do such, Diplo does such a wide range of music, but like some of the stuff that he's done is just like so rugged. Like even the first Major Lazer album, which is all the punk mixed with like dance hall and stuff. It's just like so critical. Like you don't hear that from very many artists. It's crazy that a guy like that, just like went ultra like mainstream, like and huge, kind of doing off the wall stuff.
Which is dope because his first, I guess the thing, I'm sure there was something else before, but the thing that I think of him that like really put him on the map was the Paper Planes, right? And it's that Clash sample.
Right.
Who was really sampling the Clash? I feel
Right.
like everyone samples R&B shit, and nobody's like sampling rock records.
Well, yeah, and he did it so well. I mean, on the first record, I think he sampled like Black Flag and just like all this stuff that just shouldn't work. And that's what you love about music, that doesn't happen anymore. You kind of feel like, oh, well, maybe it can't happen. But then, of course, like, Diplo just does it all over the place and then does some weird house music too. And I don't know.
Yeah,
It's always been impressive to me that he's been able to like keep his like stardom as a DJ and still like do all these different kind of projects.
Yeah.
Not just be like mediocre at them, but be good at all the different sounds, and that's kind of what's been amazing to me.
Yeah, he's off the wall. I mean, I their first album came out. I really liked a lot of that. And then I think it wasn't too long after that I'd done this song with Chronixx. I did a song called "Start a Fire." And it was just fell in my lap. I was, putting a rhythm out, and I was working with an artist from Germany who sent me a version. He was like, I guess he was in Jamaica and worked with a couple of the artists out there that were coming up, Kabaka Pyramid and Chronixx, back when I didn't know who those guys were. And I remember getting the Chronixx track and just thinking at the time, I was like, oh, this guy sounds like I Wayne or something, but he's really good. And, that song just took off. And then I remember I followed Major Lazer on social media. And at some point they put out a mixtape that was Chronixx, and it was called "Start a Fire." And I was like, oh, wow, that's my song. I was like, oh, wow, this is like my song is kind of like the, the title track on this mix, Walshy Fire and these guys are doing. But yeah, they've always done just the coolest stuff, even like hooking up with Chronixx. I think they were in Jamaica filming a video. I don't know if it was for, I think they might've been doing the video for, what's it called? Shoot, the song with Dirty Projectors. It's one of my favorite songs, but I'm like blanking right now. The Dirty Projectors, Get Free.
Oh yeah.
You guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
Get Free. Yeah. And it was, and I think they were doing the video for that, and the crew was playing Chronixx. And they were playing that song, and they were like, "Oh man, who is this?" And they ended up doing a mixtape, just like they had done. Before that, they did one with Santa Gold, they did one with LaRue, and since they've done it with a bunch of reggae artists, Jesse Royal, Kabaka Pyramid, they did one with Kabaka too. But yeah, that stuff is it's so awesome, and those were all just free. They just did these and they put it out, and it was like getting millions of plays and downloads and stuff. But
that's so tight.
Yeah.
And what did that push for you? Did people all of a sudden start coming in asking for production from you, or was that a big help for you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, in the reggae, a lot of people don't know who who the producer is. You know, that's one of the things about what I do is I think even most people that know me, they're like, so what did you do? Like, you know, like when
Right.
I'm posting all this music, and they know I have something to do with it, but they don't really understand what that is. But yeah, in reggae and stuff, people were hitting me up like crazy, wanting to, you know, do the rhythm or license it or do all sorts of things. And yeah, it helped me help me get to more people for sure. And it just, you know, got the song out there, which the song has done really well. And it continues, you know. I mean, that was like 10 years ago, and it's
Oh,
still,
wow.
you know, that song still rips. So, you know, that's nice for the, you know, income and everything.
Yeah.
So
So
Did you?
some of I've mentioned this on past episodes. Every now and then, you know, I just talk about some reggae groups and stuff that I like, and I've mentioned Chapter 11 before. I used to go see your guys' group all the time, and you were doing all the beats, and you know, you were DJing really way back before I even started. I think you were doing. I'm not positive on this, but I want to say you did like, you know, some like Rosewood Church and stuff like that. You were like, it was
oh yeah.
way back in the days, and you were just collecting the vinyl, and then you just started growing from there. And I'm just curious on, you know, kind of the production and how you got into starting making beats, and what was that, you know,
Yeah.
from DJing to like actually producing.
Yeah, I mean, I started playing instruments when I was 14, like playing guitar and then playing drums, you know, learning bass. And then I think I can't remember which happened first. I mean, right around the same time I got into production and getting keyboards and samplers and stuff and got turntables. And that was when I started, you know, I was into jungle, and that's how my name came about, Jungle Josh. And yeah, I started kind of producing and doing jungle and hip hop and stuff, and just you know, sampling and using drum machines, and yeah, I was doing that for a while. That was into, you know, the normal stuff, Wu-Tang Clan, and kind of DJing and doing hip hop beats and working with hip hop groups. And yeah, it's kind of weird because at some point, you know, the producing was kind of totally separate from my like playing, you know, because the way
Yeah,
that that kind of music was different. It's like, oh well, you could play drums or you could play guitar. It's like, well, but that's not what this is. This is a different kind of sound. You know, the drums are, you know, come from certain places, sound a certain way, and you know, you're sampling and doing all this stuff. And it was kind of interesting because at some point I had this kind of crisis because, you know, I started to do, you know, playing other groups and started to do reggae, and the producing started changing where I was playing and, you know, doing, you know, sampling but less, and like augmenting and playing. And I reached this kind of crisis point where it's kind of weird because it's like, well, wait, I didn't start production to do this. Like why am I, like, you know, why am I doing that? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is a whole different thing. You know, do I even want to do this? And you know, now, you know, my production is, you know, lots of playing, lots of everything. I mean, I guess that's a thing, you know, I kind of came to, is just, you know, kind of implementing all those things. And but it was kind of a weird transition where it's like, oh, so I'm going to be a different, you know, going from like hip hop production and I make beats to like now when I work, it's almost like, you know, you have this stupid word producer, and like no one even knows what that is. And when people hire you, they don't even know what they're hiring you for. You know, it's like,
right.
you know, on one level I make beats. So when you think about the music that I do, when you hear the songs that I post, generally, I mean, what happens is typically I wrote the music, I performed the music. Generally, I'll perform most or all of the instruments. And that's kind of weird. You know, a producer in the traditional sense, you know, would be coordinating a recording, you know, getting engineers, deciding about mics and instruments and what they're going to rent, you know, all this kind of stuff. And now, and then, you
Right.
know, hip hop turned it in. Oh, well, they make the beat, which is a whole weird way to look at it. And now it's like some hybrid of all that. You know, it's like, I don't know, you know, and some people like hire me. I'll end up being essentially a songwriter where I just write the song, you know, like, you know, Dave and I did just recently, the one with Hirie and Matisyahu, you know, that one really she ended up hiring producers on that too. So we ended up basically writing the song, you know, and I have a whole recorded versions of the song that are pretty similar to what came out. But then she'll have, you know, her band play parts of it and, you know, work with producers like Ricky Blaze was on that one, LM Pro, a bunch of big guys that do cool stuff,
All in the
Santa
same,
Gold, all that.
not the album, the whole track was, all those people were on that
Well,
same track.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the album for sure. They, you know, they were working on the whole album, but yeah, it ended up, you know, and like I said, they're producing in a different capacity. They're actually in the studio when they're recording. They went down to Sonic Ranch in Texas to record the song. We did a scratch, or we did the original take here at my studio with a track that I had and we had done, and it's virtually the same, but they're when they brought it out there, they have all her band out there and do some different arranging and kind of coordinating the whole recording. And it's not massively different, but it is different. And they did a really good job on it. But it's so how you even look at us on that, it's like, well, was I a producer on that song? I mean, in the hip hop sense, I made a beat. I helped write, we helped write the vocals and kind of work through the vocal section. But yeah, it could be anything, and when people hire you, I don't even think they know. Some people, it's just like, oh, I want to buy this song, and then they're going to replay it. Or sometimes it's like, oh, they want you to produce the song, and sometimes you end up mixing it or doing recording functions. I joke with my manager all the time. It's like, yeah, when people hire us, like, who knows what they think we're going to do. And they don't usually know.
Yeah, I think it would be so weird to even price it out, right? You're just like, well, we'll just start the session, and then I guess you just start telling. I'm fascinated by
Well,
how you even bill that, because at the same time you're just trying to do music, and so you don't want it to be on any kind of overthinking a budget wise, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like, everyone's got to get paid. So
Well, the funny part is there are still standards for that. There are kind of benchmarks, but who knows what they're based off. I mean, it's just all been hodgepodge together, and it people just roll with it. But yeah, when it gets on a song like that and you end up there's all these other producers and engineers, it gets funny. But yeah, there are kind of going rates. But like I said, even when people are buying the thing, oh, we want you to produce the record, who knows what they mean by that. And I try to stay flexible and just like roll with, well, whatever you guys want us to do, we'll do.
So if you, in that kind of situation where you're kind of writing the original like composition of the song, does that work out better for you in terms of like writing wise? Do you get to keep like a bigger part of the song?
Yeah.
Even if they end up replaying it, do they? You still
no, I'm the
basically
writer.
came up with the whole concept. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, oftentimes, it just depends on the kind of group. I mean, if it's a group, some of these bands, like I guess I give you an example, like Hirie, she has a band, or her band that she hires, and they're all ringers, and they're going to play on tour. And so I think, groups like that, they'll want to get them involved, use them as a resource. But like, we did one recently too, a Surfer Girl with Schwayze on it. And that one,
video is dope. That video is dope, by the way. It's
oh,
a
thank
trip, dude. Yeah. The
yeah,
whole track, the whole thing, I love everything about it. But that video was like, I was like tripping out. It's a trip.
yeah. And that one's a little more kind of my style, like the Sublime, like Long Beach kind of thing with the samples and stuff. So that one, I ended up playing a lot on that one because, Carter, the guy that does Surfer Girl, it's kind of his thing. And he actually wrote the song. So that's a whole different scenario. So he wrote kind of the chord progression and had kind of his vocal. And then what we were kind of charged with was roughing it up and making it more, Long Beach and more, because it's kind of a poppy song. So we wanted to have some edge. And so, then on a song like that in the production, we end up writing things. I end up writing like bass lines and, some guitar parts and doing the drums, doing all that stuff. I ended up recording all those parts, Dave and I and Carter came in. We had a whole session too. But yeah, that's a whole different scenario where like, Hirie, I largely wrote the song, the music, worked with her on the initial idea for the vocal, recorded it and all that. And actually I did a remix version too that they ended up. So I did two versions of the song because I did kind of a Major Laserist kind of trap version of the song too, because she said she was interested in that. And then they went to Sonic Ranch and they kind of blended the two. And they totally replay the thing where it could happen. Sometimes people will write a song and that's similar with Ras. Like Ras, some of the songs I'll write. We've worked together for a while, so I'll do. Sometimes I'll just have a song, instrumental, and he'll write vocals to it. But how we started initially was he had songs he was just playing on acoustic guitar, and so he's playing acoustic guitar and singing, and then my thing is to turn that into a record that sounds like, you know, the end result. I don't know if you've heard some of those songs that we've been doing, but like, yeah, they're real long, like Long Beach Dub All Stars, kind of like Trailer Ras, kind of classic Long Beach
Uh,
Dub All Stars type stuff.
no, I haven't heard them at all yet. They're not out yet, is it?
No, I mean, I've dropped little pieces here and there, you know,
Yeah.
on my social media, but we haven't released any of it. And that, you know, what's funny about that too is because Opie from Long Beach Dub All Stars lives about a couple blocks from me, and so I did a song for their new album too, which was a totally different thing. Me and Opie did the song, I did the music, and then we gave it over to the band, and you know, they have all those ringers, you know, Ed Campworth, you know, plays bass, and the dude for the Agrolites play, you know, they have all these just ringers, you know. I think Gil Sharon's playing drums on this stuff, just like all the best guys, which is one of the funnest things for me, is because, you know, I write these songs in my, you know, studio, and then
Right.
some of the best players in the world have to play my stupid little thing, you know what I mean? That, you know, so
Do,
yeah,
do they embellish it and like start adding in stuff because
sometimes, yeah,
yeah, all right. Because I know I
sometimes,
talked to you a long time ago, and I think, you know, some of the early stuff I remember you telling me it was that you would do a lot of the drum sounds for chapter 11 like inside, just like in the actual app. It was almost easier than recording live drums, right?
oh yeah, yeah, drums are really hard to get done right, you know, like a drum session. I mean, people don't understand what goes into like doing that. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to have a ringer drummer. I mean, when you listen to those, I don't know if have you guys ever seen the documentary The Wrecking Crew?
Yes, I watched that. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
isn't that
I haven't
amazing?
watched it.
But yeah, when you look at that, like, you know, you all those records like Beach Boys, all these awesome records that sound just perfect. And you listen to those and go,
Yep.
why do they sound so great? And there's the sample era where everyone where sample from, and you go, why does it sound like that? And the reason is because there were these handful of just ringers, just
Yep.
amazing players that recorded every. And so basically, you know, you couldn't have the Beach Boys. They're not like recording artists. They're good, you know. And Brian Wilson is an amazing writer, but when it comes down to recording, it's like you need people who know how to record, and it's a whole nother animal, and they have to have the right instruments in the studio and everything. So they would hire these guys to just record the songs. You know, you didn't know that. It's like when you hear a song like one of my favorite
Good
songs ever is Good
vibrations.
Vibrations. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's you know, Carol Kay playing bass, and you know,
She recorded some of the greatest bass lines of all time.
oh right, most of them. It's
Yeah, yeah,
unreal.
seriously. Yeah, if you really
It's
go back,
unreal.
anybody that is just watching, honestly, you should go watch that Wrecking Crew. I think it's on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it used to
But
be. You might be able to find it on Prime. There's another one too about Muscle Shoals, which was another similar type of outfit out in the South, which was the same thing. It was, you know. So, but the point being is, it's really hard to get good recordings, and
right,
especially things like drums. I mean, you've got to have the right instrument, the right player, you know. And drums all sound different. You want to make a certain type of song, you have to have a whole different drum set. You know, you have to have a whole different sound, a whole different room. You know what I mean? It's overwhelming. You know, even we would do, you know, when I was in Brethren we did a recording, you know, a kind of a bigger kind of production. When we're working with, we had a manager, Phil Carson, who like managed, I don't know, like Led Zeppelin, all these like big artists over the years. And you know, when we did our session, it's like, you know, you were in a huge studio, like the size of a, you know, a gymnasium with multiple drum sets and all these people working to get a drum sound, you know, and a ringer player. And even then, you know, you're barely getting it. So yeah, when you realize what goes into that, you know, I just try to find ways to do it other ways, because it's like you can't get that quality and the consistency, the, you know, for a player to play like a clock, you know, that just, it rarely happens. That's why hip hop was so cool, is because they just took this section that was perfect. Or you had these James Brown drummers like Clyde Stubblefield, who are just like nothing else in the world, that just
flawless.
play like a clock, you know.
Right. Well, I guess my question really is, so once you build this whole track, do you allow, or do they take their own liberty to kind of adjust to it, or is it just
Mhm.
they're playing you almost exactly? Is I guess what I was asking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it varies. I mean, a lot of it is very close. Like if I played you the songs, the original versions, and how the songs end up released. I doubt most people would tell much of a difference, but they add, and sometimes they'll write like a hook, or a bridge or something that wasn't in the original song, or like a part. But they really, at this point, just the ones I could think of offhand end up really similar. And that was, I just did the one for the Dub All Stars, and they recorded it. Tim of course did the horn line different than I did it, but the other stuff was very similar. But yeah, it's just funny, it's two totally different ways. Ras was writing the songs mostly, and then I was playing all the instruments and creating the recording. And then the Dub All Stars, it was a totally different thing where I wrote the song and then they played it, so the same group essentially, Dub All Stars, two different, Ras kind of doing a solo thing, but it's like the same kind of thing, but they, two different takes on that. And the Ras and I's dynamic, because I think Ras likes the hip hop edge and the grit that I put on it, where the Dub All Stars now, their kind of thing is they're more sounding like authentic reggae and playing that way. And, so they want it to sound like a live band, like Agro-Lights kind of style, or, I don't know, modern reggae or traditional reggae band.
I mean, just knowing your background, seeing you in hardcore bands to producing hip hop and reggae, I really think anybody needs, you just, like we were talking about Diplo, you can pull from all types of different genres to really make this sound unique and fresh. And I'm sure that's what you bring to that project. I'm fascinated to know. I got my NoFX poster in the back right here. It was like the 30-year anniversary of the Walk the Line, and just what it was like to work with Fat Mike and Ross on this latest album that you're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did a lot of the record before we hooked up with Mike. There was one song in particular that Mike wrote with Ras, and so we were trying to get the 5-song EP out, and we had talked to some different labels, and we were working that. And Ras put it in front of Mike, and Mike said he wanted to do it, and he wanted to write a song with Ras too, and that was crazy. I mean, I had no idea, because I NoFX wasn't really my thing growing up. Like, I liked the Vandals, I liked a lot of groups that were
Vandals,
like along those lines, but I never really listened to NoFX that much.
Yeah.
And when they did this song, Mike called me, and the dude is just like, he's just a maniac. Like, I just got this call, and like, he just unloads on me like all this wisdom. Like, he's one of these dudes, and he was just talking about, how he does the music he does and everything. We were talking about the song, because the song that he did with Ras was just mind blowing in the writing. I mean, it sounds like just this mellow song. It's a really cool song. It's a really emotional song. And kind of Mike's thing was like, he calls me and he's like, the reason I've been successful is because I do things that no one else does. Right. And he's like, everyone does reggae. Like, lots of people do reggae, but no one does sad reggae. And so basically he wanted Ras to do this sad reggae. And the song that he wrote is about his dad dying, and it's gut wrenching. Like, the first time I heard it, it ruined my day. And then once you get used to it, it's just a really cool song. It's like, and they did it kind of country style, and then I did a reggae version. But the crazy part is, when I was trying to play this, I was just like, dude, it sounds like just this really cool mellow song, but like the chords never repeat, and they're like stuff that you've never seen before in your life. Yeah. And just like, what the hell is this? And I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, dude. He's like, yeah, when I was a kid, I was a math genius, and just like, yeah, like, and I realized like their music is like that. It's like, and that's kind of what NoFX did is when you think about it, since after talking to him, I realized, I was like, yeah, that is kind of true. Like, there was all this like punk that was just, the Ramones and all this simple like New York stuff. And then here comes NoFX, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to do punk rock, but we're going to like sing harmonies and like do all this stuff that no one does in punk rock. Like, we're going to play like ringers and write songs with a bunch of chords, just like all this stuff.
Well, they don't really have any choruses in their shit either. I mean, there's no real choruses in most NoFX songs. And his bass lines, I mean, even his storytelling in all of his songs, you're just like, they just kind of go on, and they have melodies. It almost never repeats itself. So I'm fascinated to hear that song. I mean, I even went to go see like the Cokie the Clown, his super sad, depressing.
Right. Yeah, he made me listen to some of that, and I had to turn it off before I got to the end. I was just like, oh man, this is, because he goes for it. And even on the Ras song, it's gut wrenching. He wanted to dig into like, and when they were working on the song, Ras's girlfriend would tell me like, oh, he's having a lot of trouble with this song. He can't sleep. He's like throwing up. And I just thought that was like stuff you say to be like a tortured artist. I was just like, okay, dude, yeah, okay, fine, you know. I'm like, whatever. And then they sent me the song. Like, I was just like, holy shit, this is absolutely correct. Like, yeah, I guarantee you this song is. And he was like, yeah, I'll never play this song live. It's
Wow.
just
Jeez.
it's really gut wrenching because it really puts you in the room. Like, you really feel like you're there experiencing it, and it's really prolifically written in every way. It is, and it gave me such an incredible respect for Fat Mike. I had no idea how good those guys were. And when I look back, I was like, holy shit, this dude did change music. I mean, you think about it, all these groups he kind of created, you know, where Blink 182 and all these groups came from. Like,
100%.
that was
Totally.
directly from him. And then you're like, yeah, this dude changed music. This guy is like, he's a force of nature. And talking to him, oh, it's you know, he's one of those guys, you know, like you're just sitting there like, I'm in the presence of a guy who's not like anyone else, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's got his podcast as well, and
Oh yeah.
you know, I'm a giant Fat Mike fan. I think he's unique, man, and so that's a cool story. That's a really cool story. Thanks for sharing
And
that.
but I
Go
have a
ahead.
question. With working with him, do you find that, like, when you work with somebody like him and he's so established in the way that he is he accepting to your ideas and I'm just curious on
Yeah,
that.
he
Like, how,
well, he's funny like that because he is like when I first did the reggae version of the song, you know, I sent it to them, and he was just like, yeah, I love it. You know, he's not like a guy who sits there and thinks and hems and haws. He's just like, yeah, I like it. Yeah, do that. And then you know, of the song that has like 60 chords in it, and it's like I said, it never repeats. So it always feels like it is, but it's not. So when you're playing it, you're like, wow, it feels like he's just going through the same chords, but it's not. It's changing every time. And I think I got one or two of the chords wrong, and he just like, that wasn't gonna happen. You know, he like, you know, called me up and sent me a thing. I have videos of him like showing me how to play it. And it's funny, you know, I actually should show you a clip because he's showing me how to play it, and he's trying as he's doing it. So he's playing, he's like, and then when he finally gets through it, he's like, if you think that's hard, new shit about the other stuff I'm doing, you know. I'm just like, you know, he's just a crazy cat. But then, and then I did a version where I sent him some stuff, and you know, he didn't like some of the arrangement. He's just like, you know, yeah, I know it's too much guitar, like edit that. You know, it's like, he's just real. So yeah, he's open if he likes it. And like, but yeah, if he doesn't like it, he's not going to mince words or play games, or, you know, he's a trippy cat, man. Like,
Now, do you respect that? Like, I mean, you work with a
yeah,
million people, right? So, do you respect that, or are you looking to be like, nah, my way is right? You know, how do you go about that?
no,
Like, how do you go back and forth?
no, no. I always, I mean, my posture is always, I want to learn, you know, so I can disagree with him or whatever, but I want to understand his mind. You know, I already know my mind. You know, I already know what I do. I want to know how Mike does what he does. You know what I mean? So I try to stay humble. You know, I think the people that I work with that are the best are that way. I think the people have that I've seen that have a lot of potential that don't do better, it's because they don't admit what they don't know, and and they're too stuck on their own kind of idea. You know what I mean? Like, so,
Right.
you know, I try to listen to all that stuff, and I might disagree. I'll express myself, but you know, Mike is you know, and with the guys like that, he's a really successful dude. So I try to defer to that, you know, and learn from him. And
I'm
two,
sure.
you know, you can win in a different way. If you like, if he doesn't like something, people don't always know why. That's the other weird part, is people don't always know why they don't like something. So, you know, the key to me is if you really don't want to do what they're saying, you just have to do something so good that they go, oh yeah, no, do that. You know, the key is
Right.
always to just be better. You know what I mean? Because if you
Yeah.
do something good enough, everyone's going to agree with it. That's the answer at the end of the day. Like, if someone doesn't like your song or whatever, like, there's a song they will say yes to. There is a part that they will say yes to.
Right. That's always a thing that we bring up all the time is most clients or most people just they don't really know what they want. They just exactly what you said. They know if it's good
Right.
and they know if it's bad. And so they'll say, "Hey, we want this," but that doesn't always translate exactly to what you could see that everyone else wants. So you're just like, you give them what you want, and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted, and it's totally off kilter from
Yeah.
what they asked for originally.
Well, in music, it's especially like that because people think they want things that they don't. Like people will, like they don't know what it is about songs that they like. So people will say like, "Oh, I want it to sound like What I Got," or something like that's a common thing. Is like What I Got is such a unique song, like Sublime, and I do songs like that. I can do stuff like that, but people don't understand what makes that song in a way. So it's like, well, if you're going to do that song, it's going to be in a major key, it's going to be a certain beats per minute, it's going to be all these things. And they may not mean that. They just want their song that's different to sound more like that. And it's like, well, that's not how the world works, bud. Like, and so, and I learned that at some point because I was one of those people. I used to explain things like that. I'd be like, well, I want my music to be more like things I like, even if it had nothing in common with them. And you learn like, well, that's not real. And people talk in those terms. I'm sure you've seen this, Drew, because they probably go, hey, I really like this kind of music. And then you say, okay, well, yeah, I've got this and this and that. Well, not that. And it's like, well, then that's that kind of music though. Like you don't understand what it is that you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
they're
Happens all the
liking
time.
something else, maybe an aesthetic, maybe it's the way of a look or a sound or and they associate it with something different. And people do it all the time. And once you learn
Well,
that,
it was a pool party
go
I
ahead.
just past week. Legitimately, they're like, they wanted 90s and 2000s R&B. Well, I get there and it's all old white people. And I'm going, nobody wants to hear 90s, 2000s R&B.
Yep.
They want mellow, older, vibey shit, right? They just want it to vibe. They don't want banging out house. They just want it to vibe. And so I went a different route. I don't know if they loved or hated it. They probably hated me. It doesn't matter. The whole crowd loved it. But, the venue is probably like, well, we wanted this 90s shit. And it's like, oh, that's not what was going to work. Like I got some old
Yeah.
dude come up to me and go, hey, you got any Grateful Dead? They don't want to hear fucking,
Yeah.
any 90s R&B. If he's asking me for Grateful Dead, it's like maybe yacht rock, which is, like white dude R&B is the way I always like explain it. But
Right. Well, yeah, people are really bad at expressing themselves and really bad at associating things accurately. And I know because I was that way forever. And
Right.
then and it was doing music for years and years and working with people and working with one of my partners, Andy, from Ugly Duckling. I don't know if you know that group. They're Long Beach
I
hip hop group
love
for a long
Ugly
time.
Duckling, and I don't know. I didn't know that you were working with Andy. And what do you guys do together?
Oh, well, we've been friends since we were kids, and we worked on music for years. So he works on a lot of stuff that I do, even the RAS stuff. He'll do, he's really good with meter and timing. He's amazing. If you listen to any of his stuff, he has a lot of solo stuff that's just phenomenal.
I'm sorry to interrupt. What's the name of the solo stuff? I'd love to check it out.
If you put Andy Cooper into YouTube, you'll see a lot of his videos. It's under his name, and then he also with the allergies. But yeah, he's really really practical. He's kind of the opposite of me. I'm kind of more like out there, and he's real. He's been a working musician for 25 years or so, and the reason is because he is just able. He understands things in a real practical way. Like he knows how to do the kind of music he does, how many people are going to like it, and where he can work it. He's not a dreamer at all in a way. I mean, he's really practical. And working with him, when we would do songs, he would just like, well, let's look at a song like that and see what it is. And you start to realize like, yeah, this idea that you can have like a song, like you think of a song as kind of a general vibe or like, oh, you think what makes it. But when you really break it down into its components and go, well, it's this tempo, it's in this key, it's got these instruments, you start to realize that that's the only way that song happens. And people will like go, oh, well, I want to sound like Major Lazer or some of these songs, but they don't want to use any of those instruments or it's like, well, no, you don't. It's just you like Major Lazer, or you may like something about those songs, but you're not going to ever achieve that. Like, and that was one of with the Hirie thing. I think, she used a lot of those producers on the record. So I think it got some of that, but I think she was one that said like, she liked Major Lazer and like Santa Gold and MIA. And I'm just like, well, great. I love that stuff. But when I pushed the stuff more that way, I think she got nervous because it's like, well, at the end of the day, she's going to play on stage with her band. And, you want to play stuff that's going to rock with the band. So then it's like, on one hand, it's like, well, I love the way that stuff sounds. But at the end of the day, I play with the band and I play in these venues and, do this thing. So then they gravitate back towards that. And you go, oh, okay, she likes that vibe. But, when the rubber meets the road, I think they have another thing that they want too.
And that's where I think that the genius of like doing a side remix just because and
Right.
sending it to him is just like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm seeing it more and more, and I know Fuse is seeing it, but we post stuff all the time for the record pool, and sometimes the remix is bigger than
Oh
the
yeah.
original, right? And even on
Yeah.
radio lately, the remix is becoming bigger. Sometimes the remix
Yep.
just carries the song, and so maybe they need to see that and just go, oh, I guess I don't know. I don't know how to say it,
I think
but maybe they need to see it.
I think one of the things that, as the older I've gotten and the kind of the more I've watched and learned with music, one of the things that I've noticed is that making songs and making music is a lot of like luck in a lot of ways. There's a lot of skill and time and artistry that goes into it all. But a lot of these songs that become massive hits are like, every time I see a documentary on one, it's like, well, this happened and then this happened and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it was a hit. And it's like the Mike Posner with I Took a Pill in Ibiza, the Sieb remix. Like, the song came out and then it did nothing, and then that remix came out and then it was a huge hit. And it's just like, I saw an interview with him and he was like, thank God for Sieb. Like that relaunched his career. So I just
Yeah.
think that was pretty interesting.
A lot of songs that do well, or even be songs that weren't intended, or songs that were outright jokes. One, and working with Andy, that's one of the things he studies all that stuff, reads every music biography there is, understands why every song happened the way it did. And yeah, you would hear these songs. I mean, like, what was it? One of them, like, I wish I could remember the song. That was like like a Parliament song. They had a guy who showed up to deliver a pizza, play the guitar solo on the song. And like, they never knew who he was. They never saw him again. And it was this huge song,
No way. I
or
never heard that. That's
there
amazing.
are a bunch of crazy stories like that. I think the one, like, in that one song that was a hit, Incense and Peppermints, like, one of the engineers ended up singing it because the singer didn't like the song, and it ended up being like their biggest song. I think that's the Smash Mouth, like the "Hey Now You're a Rock Star," like that was like a
Oh,
joke, like,
it
because
was a
they didn't have
total
a hit for the album, so they just like made like
yeah.
they tried to make the stupidest song they could possibly make, and that
Yep.
was it. That "Ain't Seen Nothing Yet" one, that baby, like, they're making fun of their manager. It was a joke. They were making fun of his stutter, and like, never, these songs were never intended to be like, oh, this is a great song. Hey, record label, like, listen to this. It was like someone heard it and was like, what's that? We're going with that, and it was, totally not even supposed to be, anything.
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
that with the Chainsmokers song, their selfie song, that they like
Mm.
put that song out. It was like everything that they hated within the music industry at the time. They even hated the sound, that like Melbourne bounce style of house that they put out. They made it as a complete
Yeah.
joke, and it blew up. And
Well,
it's
the
just wild.
interesting thing, I think, and this, kind of ties into what we were talking about with the remix and with working with artists, is I learned early on when I would work with artists, and I don't have the luxury to do this as much today, but when I would work with artists that I liked, you know, they would have this visualization of what they're doing, their career, and that was really stifling because they viewed themselves a certain way. What I would do, like, I remember I would do this, was one artist in particular where I kind of realized this, because they were just like, well, I want my songs to be like this and this and this, and I was just like, well, I said, that's cool, you should do that, but would you do a song for me and we'll just do this other thing? And then they're like, if I tried to give him the track that I thought he should do for his album, he'd overthink it. It's like, well, no, it needs to be more this and this and that. But when you disarm them, when you go, okay, well, that's cool, you should do that, but let's do this other thing. Kind of like when Dan the Automator, or like these guys would do like Deltron 3030, or the one with
Love that
Cool
album.
Keith. What was the Dr. Octagon, or things
Dr.
like this?
Octagon. Yep.
Right, because you get these guys and you go, okay, you're doing your thing, but let's just do this weird thing, and then they're
Yeah.
way open, because it's no longer like, oh, well, this is my thing and it has to be this certain way. It's like, oh, this is just a fun thing I'm doing, and then they open up to it. And I think that a lot of artists, I feel like, are better when they do that, because they're less inhibited. They're just more responding to the music than like thinking about what they're trying to do in their career, or how they're trying to portray
Being
themselves. Which,
being on brand or however it is, it's
sure,
like almost like a song that I'm thinking of is Amy Winehouse Valerie. It's Mark Ronson.
Mhm.
You know, he produced that whole album for her, The Back in Black. It doesn't sound anything like
Yeah.
that. And then he put that on his own solo shit. And exactly like you said, right? He did the whole thing for her that was like her vibe and her brand and whatever. And then he's like, let's do this solo shit and I'm just gonna do this. And you know, that's a massive, massive song. And it's on his album. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
out of her realm. It's one of her biggest ones, I think, that people relate to.
Yeah, yeah, and some, you know, some producers get big enough. Like that's why I wasn't the hugest Pharrell fan. I like his stuff, but I thought it was awesome how he could just get people to do whatever off the wall thing he wanted, you know, because he reached this level and it's like, okay, Gwen Stefani, I just want you to like sing over like some trash can banging, you know, like bring it back to
Right.
like Audio 2 days where it's just drums and like you singing. It's like, well, yeah, that'd be nice because that's basically what I want to tell everyone to do is like I want to get some big artist that's a ringer who could sing really well and make them do something off the wall, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah, he totally took I mean, that was her biggest hit. So she did No Doubt and then it's like a marching band. It's basically like, "Hey, just sing on this marching band about bananas."
yeah, but it really had those elements of like, you know, I just think of us like when I was a kid, I liked things like Audio 2 Top Villain, if you know that song, you know. It's just like impeach the president all cut up, just boomts, 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 kit
Yeah.
boom, 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 kits. And then like,
Yeah.
you know, Milk D rapping also. And it's just and then like I think the only music is the people in the back kind of going, go Brooklyn, 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 go Brooklyn, Brooklyn. And it's just so it's just like, you know, drums and like some people chanting and a dude rapping. And it's just like are like low profile, you know, gotta pay dues where it's just like more bounce to ounce drums, you know, like just, you know, I love that stuff. I love the rawness. And to me, like that Gwen Stefani one was that, but like with someone who should never do that. I mean, like, yeah,
Right.
like just like one of the greatest things too. I don't know if you've ever seen this clip, but Diplo got, you know how like reggae artists will do dub plates where they get the artist to sing the song, but it's about their sound system, you know. So it's like whatever the popular song is, you'll have them do a version, but they convert the lyrics to be about you, about the DJ. And Diplo had one from Madonna, which, you know, shouldn't exist. You know, this isn't what Madonna, a pop artist, does. You know, and he got like what's that, La Isla Bonita, but it's about Diplo or Major Lazer. It's like a Major Lazer
Oh,
dub plate. Oh, and
that's
it's the
I
so
did
craziest
see
thing. He
tight.
that.
plays it. You know, it starts out. You know, she's singing "Last Night I Dreamt a Major Lazer." Da, da, da. You know, she's like doing "La Isla Bonita" but about Major Lazer and stuff like
Oh,
that.
that's
To
so
me, is just
tight.
like yeah, the coolest stuff in the world. You know, it's like you want to be able to mix those things. You know, as opposed to have these artists, you know, a lot of times good artists, they overthink things and they make music with a different motive than just doing something cool, you know. So
I'm sure that comes with just working with a producer where, you know, maybe it's on a dime versus like if you're in the band and there's no time, right? And you're not on a clock and you're just kind of able to jam. Maybe it's
yeah.
not overthought as much. I don't know.
Yeah, the best musicians I've ever known have like I think one of the reasons why I've been able to do pretty well as a writer, and I'm not a very good player at any. I play a lot of instruments, okay, and like Andy, you know, kind of the same way. A lot of people I know who do what we do and write songs. You know people who are just ringers. I mean, I know a couple that are just like ridiculously talented, and but they get you know if you listen to a song they you know most songs are usually good songs are pretty simple and for them, it's like, well, why would you do that?
Right.
You know, it's like, well, yeah, they're going to do this
Right.
crazy thing. And it always comes out sounding a certain way, which is like how jam bands or, you know, prog music sounds. You know, it's like, well, yeah, if you're playing for other
Fish.
musicians, that's how it sounds. But no one wants to
Yeah.
hear that, you know? They want to hear like what I got is two chords, you know, or like, you know, D and G back and forth, you know? And if you're this amazing player, it's like, well, why would I do that? And that's why when you see someone like James Brown, he basically got all these amazing musicians together, but he knows nothing about music and he just goes and hums to them and says, well, play this. Bunt, 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 bunt. And so this amazing guitar player just goes, okay, I guess I'm playing bunt, 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 bunt,
Right.
you know? And he plays it really well and it sounds amazing, but he would have never done that on his own. It had to be some weirdo who knows nothing about music telling him, hey, no, play the cool thing. Like instead of playing all that stuff you want to play,
Right.
you know, augmented fifth and blah blah blah. Like just play something cool.
Yeah, even like I'm sure. I think there's quotes about like the drummers, like just hit it like this, da, 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 da,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
He would just go around to everyone and basically tell them like, here's what you need to play.
Yeah.
Do you think that when artists come to you to work on projects that they kind of tend to come in with too much and you do have to simplify it a lot in terms of just to make it digestible to like the everyday listener?
I don't know. I mean, the challenge with, any kind of session like that is, like you said, they're kind of serendipity of just getting the right mix of the song. That's what you're looking for, is just a spark. At the end of the day, that's what
Right.
we're all trying to do, is we're trying to get this initial spark that we go that almost writes itself. That's the tricky part. Sometimes, I mean, I guess once you get into the process, yeah, you might have to be like, people will start overthinking it. But that's more along the way. I mean, I think the hard part is the trick to the whole thing. And I think the reason why people use people like me, I mean, when you think about it, you have these artists and they're touring and they're doing all this stuff. Why do they even come to someone like me? It's because I'm sitting in here all the time coming up with little sparks, little starts, little ideas that get the ball rolling. So once the ball is rolling, like, once the car is going, you can kind of steer it, but you can't steer a parked car. Like, you ever try to turn a steering wheel when the car's stopped? You can't.
Right.
But once it gets
Totally.
going, like, you can, so it's kind of that initial motion, is the trick. And I mean, lately I get to work with really good people, so they're there for a reason. They know what's good about them. That's really great. I mean, there's no substitute for that, is artists like that. But I think, like I said, what they're looking for me is just a spark. Because it's like, oh, I've got to, because what's the thing that people always say, and this is true: you have your whole life to write your first album, and then you have like a year to write the second, third. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is how it works. So essentially, what they've got to do is they've got to figure out, well, how do I get years worth of writing? And well, the answer is you have to have more writers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, I can go to, I think, like Hirie on this last record, I think she worked with like 30 different writers and ringers, good people. Rome from Slime of Rome. I'm sure all the great, Nick Bailey, all the guys that do cool stuff in that scene. And 30 songs to whittle it down to 10 or 12,
It's crazy.
Yeah. Because I mean, you remember that. I mean, this people's first album would just be their whole life, and it'd just be like this amazing album. And then the sophomore one, it's like, okay, so then they've been on tour this whole time, and it's like, okay, well, record another record. It's like, well,
I always tell DJs that when they're just once they get stale, it's like that's your whole thing. It's everything has been built around this first quote unquote album, and you put all your energy into just making it. And once you make it, you need to sustain. So how do you sustain after you've put all your energy? How do you still make it fun, and how do you still grow from that? So no,
look at
this makes me think of Drew and I are big fans of Krista Makes podcast, and it really makes me think of the episode where he has on Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, and they're talking about the first album, and then they talk about their second album, and that's why it got the name it did, the 1459, because it was their 15 seconds of fame were over. And I just thought that was an amazing album title.
Well, yeah, I mean, Weezer, like Rivers, like burnt all the tapes from Pinkerton, which me and my group of friends really liked that album, but like he was so embarrassed by it, he ended up like having a breakdown and like burning all the tapes and everything. But you see, and I think Diplo is a great example when you talk about the DJs, Drew, because I get the sense, I don't know what Diplo actually does in his production. He's always working with other people. I know, right out the gate, he was working with the dude that I think was working with MIA. It was some British guy. What was his name? Like
Switch?
Switch. Yeah. So that guy was a part of it and doing that stuff. And then he got Walshy Fire and Jillionaire, and Philip, the junior blender guy, was doing reggae stuff for a while. So I think he's always sourcing stuff. Like, I don't get the sense that, Diplo, I don't know if he plays any instruments or I don't know what. I've never seen him. He just has a sense of what he wants, and he gets the right people to do it, and that's why he can just continue, and he just keeps, because it's like, okay, well, who do I need to make the sound I want to make, and he can do that. But as far as him like actually being the guy, he's a network, or think about a guy like DJ Khaled or whatever, which is a phenomenon to me. How you could, I mean, the guy seems like he has an IQ of 5. You know, it's the weirdest thing. You know, he's sitting on the songs. We the best music, which I guess is the name of this thing, but it just sounds like I don't know. And you know, but
he does
he you know he gets Major 7 and these guys who are just killers, and they do the tracks, and you know, and his album
he's
is
just
huge.
a networker. He's just a
Right.
networker. He's like, hey, Rihanna, will you jump on the track? And then that's it. I mean, he's just a networker.
Yeah, I
I
can't
don't think
imagine.
he's a businessman. I don't think he does anything. He shouts and he's a businessman. That's the extent of it.
All right, so
Alright,
this
cool.
is a silly Drew Pierce $1 million production. Here we go.
This is Arnold here, the movie star of Twins and Kindergarten Cop. Drew and Fuse are going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to answer them immediately. Don't bullshit them. Answer the questions. Hurry! I'm after the chopper. It's now time for rapid fire.
All right,
We called
so
in a
our
favor
first,
from Arnold.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the governor. Do you ever think of how DJs or radio will play a song when you're creating it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we used to more. You know, Dave. I mean, especially when we do hip hop. You know, when Dave and I were producing
Tell the
actively.
listeners, because I know who Dave is, but tell the listeners who Dave is, because this is your new group, Left Coast Sound.
Yeah, right. So yeah, Dave. I mean, Dave and I have done music. We've known each other since elementary school, and we've done music since high school. And yeah, now we do a thing called Left Coast. He's a bass player for the Dirty Heads, and then we do a production thing called Left Coast.
He was original
But
member of Chapter 11, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, we when we used to do that stuff, we were DJing a lot back then. And you know, so in addition to playing, we would DJ parties and DJ our shows, and so we really thought about that aspect, you know, because you're when you're a DJ, you're very aware of what makes songs playable, you know, and you know, you even have songs you like but you can't play, you know, like I'm sure you guys have those where it's like I love this song,
Oh,
but
man.
it just doesn't work, you know, it's like the intro isn't right, or some of the way the song works, or you know, the way it develops, it just you know. So yeah, we used to think about that a lot, and I think I don't as much anymore because I'm so detached from DJing. I haven't DJed so long, so I don't as much, but we still do, you know, from time to time. I think when we're making decisions about intro, or even, you know, the instrumentation or how things are going to work, we do think about that. We used to think about it a lot more when we were DJing all the time, though, because you're
Right.
constantly, as a DJ, you're constantly thinking of songs in terms of, can this fit in the set? Like, you know, can I play this? You know,
Always.
so
Yeah.
so you listen to music with that ear, and I do it less these days, but we're still aware of that, you know. But yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. I don't hear DJs as much anymore, or even mixtapes, and I wish I did, because I think you learn so much from like I learned so much about what I like about music from mixtapes, and I feel like it's really hard to get inspired. I probably you guys need to put me up on some good resources, because it's really hard to get inspired these days. That's one of the tricks, you know. It's like I listen to very little modern music, and like I need a DJ to walk me through it. You know, the DJs used to do that. It's like you'd get these mixes, and it's like, oh, this is what's cool about the world right now. You
Right.
know, oh wow, I
you should
like
go-
this song. I wouldn't even know I like this song until it was in the mix, and I'm like, oh no, that is dope.
Yeah.
You should go hang with Drew one night. He's doing a new a pretty cool spot out there now, the bungalow, and that'd be a
Oh
great
yeah,
spot. I feel like
yeah, that's cool. That's not that far from me. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
I'm in
I
the
like that
Huntington
place.
one. I'm actually
Oh,
there
are you?
on
Okay.
Wednesdays. At Huntington on Wednesdays. I do every Wednesday. The dude, the Trey Cool was there last Wednesday. He came in from Green Day, the drummer from Green Day.
Oh, is that right? Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was random, and so I was like, I was playing some Prince and some Bowie, and I mean, it's a very eclectic spot. You know, I'm playing pretty
I
eclectic.
feel like
so
it's a spot where a DJ can still be a DJ though, which is kind of nice.
Well, you're just kind of like in your living room, right? Like that's the aesthetic there. It's like
that's the
your
aesthetic. Yeah,
library
it's
or
so
something.
tight. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so tight. And I love that because it's not a club, and it's like you just get I just get to be a DJ again. It's such a cool thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna send you something after this. I'm gonna hook you up with something after this.
Oh,
That's
please do, man. Because I need inspiration. I always think like there's got to be people out there doing cool stuff, and even like the the mashup kind of era where everyone was doing mashups, and you just hear music in this fresh way that shouldn't exist. Like that, like even we were talking about earlier, like remixes. I think that was the magic, is because you hear things in hip hop music in general. It's like you hear stuff that would have never been together. A musician would
Right.
or a singer would have never thought to sing that way on that, or
Right.
like, even like those things that you would hear, what was it, Max Tronone and those guys would do like all those remix albums, like Dub Quali and like, reggae. I had a friend that did a reggae version of like Nos that was just insane.
There's one that I wonder if I still have, but it was Queensbridge. What's the? I'm sorry.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
up.
The Queens were
Queensbridge
the most deaf,
Bob with
or
Bob.
with the mob Bob Deep. Yeah, that was it.
Bob Deep.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
Bob Deep album
Bob Deep.
was yeah, it was all Bob Marley versus Mobb Deep. That was a
Yeah,
good one.
there was a whole era, when they did like the JDO head with Jay-Z over Radiohead stuff, and
The
and just
Gray album.
that.
The Gray
And
album, yeah, that was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, the Danger Mouse one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I feel bad because like when I was talking earlier, how I kind of have this crisis, like I'm a different type of producer now than when I started out, and sometimes I lose touch with what animated me about the whole thing, and like that was it. Is like the mix tape culture and all that kind of like hearing music in a way that it would never exist, and like being inspired by that stuff. And when you don't see it, I don't see it happening these days, or you don't hear stuff like that. Diplo was the, Major Lazer kind of was the closest thing to that in recent years. But it's like sometimes I'm like, man, I need that stuff to kind of like inspire me and remind me like what was cool about music.
I feel like the SoundClouds and the label, like the label police have kind of really prohibited a lot of this, though.
Oh,
Like,
that's right.
Like they've really cracked down on what you can put out, and because of all the new.
No, that makes sense. That now that you mention it, that makes total sense, because before it was on CDs or it was on like maybe LimeWire or something, but there were physical CDs and things, and now like I can't even post my own music most of the time because like they send me the things like, oh, we pulled your thing. I have to like say, oh, this is my song, like let me post it or whatever. And but yeah, like I can't even post my own stuff. So it's like, yeah, and it wouldn't make sense to do CDs because people don't deal with that anymore. They're used to going to SoundCloud and all these things, but you can't do it there. So yeah, no,
Totally.
it makes total sense now that you mention it, why the algorithms killed that, because
Yep.
Yeah.
it used to, I used to have all those CDs, like when it sucks, man. That's a bummer, because how does that even come back?
TikTok is allowing remixes and different things now. So you can post a mashup or a remix on TikTok and they fully allow it. I mean, I don't, they just haven't been cracked down on it all, but that's where a lot of the people are like spreading all this crazy stuff.
It's weird because it's affecting the TikTok is affecting the DJing now. Like we're starting to play songs that got like big on TikTok, and it's kind of wild.
Well, yeah, that happened. What was it, last year with the Dirty Heads had that song Vacation that was on an older album, and it had a total resurgence because of TikTok, and like totally blew up. And then we had a funny one. I did a song for a group called Cashed Out, and that guy that did the what's the dog face or whatever, the skater guy who did the
Oh yeah,
thing with
the cranberry guy.
He did that with our song, and like I just saw it one day on his thing, like it was something, and he did the same thing, but it was our song playing, and he's like singing the lyrics to it and stuff, and then it got like some little radio play and stuff after that. But yeah, it's crazy when that stuff happens.
That was a great album too, by the way. I was bumping that for a while. That whole album. Once you posted that, you did it, and I was like, oh, I'll check it out, because usually I'll check out anything that you post that you're doing.
Oh, you're talking about the Cashed Out record?
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys are good. I like them. I like them a lot. Greg's a really good writer. Really, really tasty.
One of our other rapid fire questions for you, and I'm kind of going to jump around in our order, Drew, is do you have a favorite moment from ever just being in the studio with somebody, or like just something that you can recall that was just a great moment?
Well, yeah, one of my favorite stories was, you know, early on when I was in the Brethren Daddies, we recorded an album at Eddie Van Halen's house, and so we were there, and Eddie's just a nut, and we're playing his guitars, and he's running around. And I remember there was a moment, our other guy in the group was I play guitar, like I said, I'm not very, traditionally, I've never been really big into an instrument. I just kind of like, it's real functional for me. I like music, so I play a role. But the other guy's like a guitar hero guy, so he's just like going back and forth, Eddie, and just mouth playing all his guitars, going crazy. And at one point he brings up Jimmy Page, and you just see Eddie just, get this look on his face and draw back. He's like, Jimmy Page? It's like, that guy plays like his hand is broken. And it was just this weird moment where you're sitting there and you're like, someone is insulting like Jimmy Page, one of the greatest guitar players of all time. But then you're sitting there and going, but it's Eddie Van Halen, so he's probably right. Like the one guy who might be better than Jimmy Page is making fun of Jimmy Page. It's just such a weird moment. So that's always one of my favorite stories, because I just feel like that should be like in a VH1, like Behind the Music or something. That's my
awesome.
behind the music moment.
I love that so much. It's awesome.
To follow that question up, what would you consider your greatest accomplishment as a producer?
Greatest accomplishment as a producer? Wow, I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I've kind of like steadily done, like, I've done a lot of marginally cool things, but there hasn't been the any kind of mountaintop. I mean, just doing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess like, getting to a point where I think doing it to the point where I could do it professionally. I think in recent years I've created enough assets, enough songs, been able to do publishing stuff, and that's really it. I mean, I think that was always my goal. I think even back when we were first doing music, the goal was kind of be able to make a living doing it. And so I think, in the last, few years, I've kind of reached that level where I could do that. I think that would be it, kind of the culmination of it all.
I agree.
That's great. Yeah. There's people don't understand, and even our podcast, primarily our listeners are DJs, and I think sometimes even they can be a little unaware of just the work and it takes, and what it takes to do what you're doing, full time, and just the amount of probably projects that you have going on that are still open, or songs that are on the shelf, and then you pull the song and you work on it and you put it back, and
and you don't get paid until the end of it, right?
Yeah.
It's just sitting and you're working until it's done.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what people don't realize about music, and I'm sure you guys, the level that you guys work at, is it really is work. And I think that's what people don't anticipate. So when the going gets hard, that's why I think you'll see people switch around. And I even did that initially. You'll see, oh, I'm DJ, I'm in, oh, well, maybe I should be producing, or like, well, maybe I should do this other thing. It's because when the going gets hard, they just go, oh, well, it should be easy, or it should be fun. It's like, no, if you're going to do it at the level that you need, that, at a high level, you're going to have to do all the parts you don't want to do. And you're going to have to do it consistently, even when you don't want to do it. And that's, and people take that often as a sign that they should be doing something else, or maybe they're not cut out for it. And it's like, no, you just have to, it's work. It really is. And that's a tough pill to swallow, because it does take a little bit of the fun out of it too. It is still fun, but like, I do a lot of music, and like, I was thinking about it earlier today. If someone asks me what I like to do, like, I don't even think about music, like, where music is like, oh, I love music. It's like, I don't even think music's just like, it's not even part of that equation anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so taken for granted. And even if people say, like, if people like talk about music, I won't even sometimes think, like, if I was in a room full of guitar people talking about guitar, I might not even put together that I play guitar. I'm just like, it'd be out of my mind. Like, I'm not even, I do play guitar. I've been playing for like, however decades, but I don't even think more. It's just like,
when I'm off and I'm just hanging out with friends, people are like, hey, put a playlist on. I'm like, I don't even know what music is anymore. I can put a podcast on for you, or I can put something like, I can throw some talk radio on, but I don't even know what to play. I mean, I could really think about it, but then I get too wrapped up in it. It's like my brain's turned off, and I'm just focused on just hanging out and being a normal person. As silly as
And
that
I
sounds.
don't
Right.
if you're anything like Drew and I too, like when anybody we're out with like people, or it's like, oh man, you don't even want somebody to mention to people that like you don't really know that you're a DJ or in your sense a producer. It's like, oh my God, I really don't want to have this conversation right now with somebody who's just gonna ask me all these 1,000 questions about, oh, so you're a DJ. Oh,
Well, I think a
Oh
lot of the
yeah.
people get
Oh
a lot of
yeah.
people get jealous. They want to do it themselves. They want to not have a regular 9 to 5, and so they're curious. How are you actually doing what you love? And I think that's what a lot of the questions lay from that I get, at least. I don't know if you get that same stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I think most people just assume that it's less than it is. Like I more
Yes.
get like oh you're oh so it's like a hobby or something, or you know what I mean? Like they just assume like, well, I haven't heard of you. You're not on like magazines or something, so you're not realizing that like most working, like you're talking about a very small percentage of people that people actually
Right.
know. So yeah, I think for me more it's weird because like yeah, people get that kind of attitude like, oh that's fun. So what do you do? Like it's a hobby or something.
Well,
It's like
definitely get some of that too. I know what you mean there, where
yeah,
it's like, oh, that's fun. So what's your real job? And you're like, no,
right.
this is the real job.
well,
Yeah,
my dad always told me I would never make it, or you can't just DJ for a living. You need to get a real job. And so
right.
I always try to get a real job, and just I would always get sucked back into DJing, and I just couldn't help it. It was like DJing is where I made my money, is where I liked it, and every time I would do a real job, it wouldn't work out for whatever reason. I remember years later when I had just got started. I was probably 5 years deep in DJing. I was doing pretty well for myself, and my dad's like, "Just watch this thing on the Mark Ronson, and you see how much money he's making. Why don't you be a DJ like him?" And I'm like, "I hate you. Just go away."
Right.
Like yeah, because
Yeah, that is
he's the
funny.
uh,
one
Like
percent that you're talking about, right? He's that minor one
yeah, oh
percent
yeah.
that's
Well,
actually eclipsed it.
Well, and the trip about a guy like Ronson, I mean, I don't know a ton about him, but he seems like he was a rich kid already, right? And there's a lot of that in music too, like that, like even like his whole kind of crew, like Lily Allen. I think her parents are like actors, and like they're in the industry. So a lot of these people, and I think Ronson included, like they kind of started on third base,
Right. Yeah.
you do
Makes sense.
see that, and you don't realize it. I never really thought like that, but when you get around those people, you start to realize like, oh wow, okay, you were kind of you were able to, because a big part of what we do or any of this stuff is you've got to be able to put in the time in. You've got to be able to do it when you're not getting paid or doing other stuff, and that's why a guy like Ronson, I think, can, or you even think about what he did, like getting like the DAP Kings or something. You're just like basically putting people together,
Right.
It's like, yeah. And if you
Yeah.
have resources, and Diplo would do that. Diplo says, a funny story he'd talk about is how you just go to Jamaica with a bunch of money and just pay artists to like do stuff, and for a while his handle on Twitter was random white guy, because like the joke was, these people have no, like he did Vibes Cartel's biggest song ever, but like Vibes Cartel had no idea who he was. He was just some random white dude, who's in the studio with money one day, and that
That's
song
wild.
ended up being the Beyonce song. I think that was one of the songs that really first took off, is that girl. I think it turned into that Girls Who Run the World with the scratching thing. That
yeah,
Oh
it
yeah.
was a Vibes
Yeah.
Cartel song
or
on the
Pon de
first
Floor.
first
Yeah,
Major Lazer.
yeah.
Yeah, but he was able to do that, and had the resources to put people together. It's almost like I don't get the sense that either one of them are very musically inclined, other than from a taste perspective and a DJ thing, which is important. That's why you have, like, you guys kind of learn what people respond to, and it probably helps them that they don't have any musical hangups. They just know it sounds good
Right.
and how to get there, but they don't
Mhm.
they,
Right.
they don't get hung up on, oh well, that's a G, you can't play G C D again. I mean, that's been done. Like they don't know. They're just like, yeah, play that. Oh, you want me to play this? Yes, play that. I have no idea like how wrong, or how
Right.
trite it is.
Do you recall like a moment in your music career where that was kind of like a turning point, where it went from being kind of like a hobby for you to being your full-time career?
I mean, I think there was a point, I think, I started to reach a point where I think life gets real when you're submitting things to big projects. Like, you know, when you listen to stuff on the radio, it's real easy to dismiss it and go, oh, that's simple. Oh, that's stupid. All my stuff sounds like that. And everyone thinks that. Everyone does. Literally everyone. They hear a song like, oh, that's just like the stuff I do. But then when you're actually handing it in to a project, you're like, and you're listening to other stuff that people do, you realize like, no, it's not the same. The differences are subtle, but they're real, you know? And
Right.
I think there was a point where I realized that it was just a lot more work. A lot of I really like to start songs. I really like, I'm good at coming up with ideas, and I hate the last 20%, the polishing, the making sure everything's right. I hate that. And I always wanted someone else to come along and do that. And, you know, realizing that you're never going to get anywhere. Like, it's not to make something that's similar to what's out there. That's not enough. Your perception of that is all wrong, first of all, what it actually is. And second of all, even if it's just as good as what's out there, people don't need that. They don't need you. You know, it needs to move them. It needs to make, like, really want to do it. I think there was a point where I just realized, wow, this really does take a full-time effort, and you can't compete with guys who are working 7 days a week without working on it more and doing that. And then, you know, for me, I kind of got lucky because one of the, you know, working with Andy, he was working with a company that in the UK that did publishing stuff, and we were able to do some publishing libraries, and that stuff really helped, you know, on the income side, because I got a lot of TV stuff and TV and
dope.
commercials and movies and stuff, and that's just, you know, that stuff keeps you going on projects because it's just publishing, you know, it's just the stuff's airing all over the world, and you're just getting checks. And so then, you know, I think those kind of things, realizing that, and then kind of finding the vehicle that more funded me being able to do it and to invest money into it, more money than I had in the past, all those kinds of things, you know, just kind of culminating at once.
We've talked to some of the guys that we've had on in the past, and they've really jumped into video games. So they're doing production, and
Yeah.
they're doing. So you're talking about movies and the TV stuff. They dabble in that a little bit, but the video games has also been a giant income stream. I don't know if you've
Oh,
messed with
yeah.
that at all, or thrown any of into your
I'd love
production into that.
to. There might be. I mean, you know, I think the company that I've worked with, you know, I did like 4 different library albums, and, you know, we had this idea to kind of do Beastie Boys, like, check your head, ill communication type stuff. We felt like, I feel like that's like one of those things that doesn't get done, that could be, you know, in action sports and all this stuff. And yeah, we sold a handful of libraries, and they're really good at getting it in TV stuff. I mean, we had a bunch of stuff, you know, Abercrombie Fitch commercials, stuff on HBO, lots of like cable stuff, like Bar Rescue and 90 Day Fiance and all that kind of stuff. Penn and Teller,
Crazy.
Vice. I had a bunch of stuff on Action Bronson show, a bunch of stuff on Vice, all that. But yeah, it's probably like the companies, you know, have their own little niche, and yeah, it'd be awesome. And I almost wonder too, like, you know, with all the songs, that's what's good about having the properties, is they're floating around, and it might be in, you know, 10 years, one of them just ends up on Grand Theft Auto 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the hope. That's kind of the lottery ticket part of this, is, you know, I just did music, and I'm like, this song is good, and, you know, like, you're seeing all these songs get resurrected by what's that show, Stranger Things. You know, they play an old song,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's a hit again, or
Dude,
like
that's wild.
TikTok things.
It's like hitting the lottery.
So, yeah, and you own the property. I mean, music is a really good thing from that perspective, because you have all these collection agencies, right? Like, when I do a song, I can register it with ASCAP or BMI, and I've got these guys that go all over the world collecting money for me. You know, so if they play it on a TV show at 2:30 in the morning in Israel, you know, they go collect my money and send it to me. I mean, it's really pretty awesome, you know, to own properties like that. Like, even if you had real estate, you'd still have to go collect. I don't even have to collect.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
awesome when you think about it. So yeah, that's why I kind of
this
think
is
of it
a-
as like, man, I just need to pop out as many properties as possible, you know?
This is
Yeah.
a random question, but I've heard you reference the Beastie Boys a couple times. Are you a big Beastie Boys fan?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're an inspiration. You know, they were the sample era, and doing it with punk rock and mixing. You know, being from Southern California, I think we've always had a real eclectic mix of music. So, you know, Sublime, you know, Beastie Boys. It's all kind of hip hop, reggae, rock, punk mixed together.
Did you get to
What
watch their
animates it.
documentary, the Apple TV
Oh,
Plus
the one on Apple. Yeah, I watched that one. Yeah,
I thought it was awesome.
yeah. It's crazy. Their whole career. They're a funny group.
Yeah,
I always
it
trip
was
off
interesting.
of guys like that too, because they're always like, you know, I think in that one, you know, they make it look like, you know, that first record, like, oh, you know, we should have been, you know, and what's his face, Russell Simmons, like, yeah, they kind of took advantage of this kind of stuff. It's like, dude, you guys were huge, like, and you wouldn't have been, you know, it's so funny, like, it's so funny how these artists, like, they really mess artists' heads up, because they basically, you became the Beastie Boys, and you know, you took this path and you get famous and just have this amazing life, and then you steady tell other people, oh, don't let them take advantage of you on that first record. It's like, well, no one would even know who you were if they didn't, though. And so you got all these people who watch these guys and go, oh, you know, I gotta be careful of my music, you know, before they've made it. And it's like, well, that's why you're never going to make it.
No, I was going to say they never would have toured with Run DMC, right? Had they
They would
not
have never done
gone with
anything.
her. Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
Rick Rubin, you know, that first record is iconic, you know, and what he did was really important, you know, like in the way that it was made them, you know, and having guys like Russell Simmons and you know, that's why you were able to do all the goofy stuff. You were able to make stuff like Paul's Boutique, which most people didn't understand for years after, you know, and then it's like, oh, this is great. But like, to even have the funds to do that, it's so funny, you know, when you watch guys like that, because they're basically, and they all do that, you know, like whenever I talk to them, oh, you know, we should have done it differently. It's like, no, you shouldn't have. You're famous. You're famous and rich. You should have done it exactly how you did it. And then you hear, and when I hear artists, I want to smack them, because they're like, yeah, you know, I don't want to sorry. They're, you know, if the first label has too much interest, it's like, well, if you effectively get this great deal out the gate, they have no interest in promoting you. If the contract is a little bit geared towards them, they're the ones taking the risk, and now they have all this incentive to exploit the hell out of you, because, you know, and then once you're there, now you've got all the options in the world. You can, you know, you can do whatever you want, like the Beastie Boys did, and you can have a 25, 30-year career. But no, we should have never made them one of the most greatest albums in human history with the greatest producer and one of the great. We shouldn't have done that, and that's the part we shouldn't have done. You know, it's like, okay, guys.
That's a great point and a great takeaway from that too. I always loved Beastie Boys, and I'm a little younger, and my first Beastie Boys was given to me by my older brother on cassette, and it was Hello Nasty was my favorite or was my first my first album ever I was ever owned was given to me by my brother, and it was Rush, Exit Stage Left. That was the first album I ever owned. It was on cassette tape, and then the second one was Beastie Boys, Hello Nasty. So that was the second album I ever owned as a kid.
Oh, wow.
And it's just kind of wild to go back and then watch that documentary, and then just also like the influence that, you know, MCA had on that entire album. I didn't really know that, you know, when I was first listening to it and stuff. And that was cool to like just hear and see.
Well, yeah, it's funny when you, and I think, I can't remember if it was that one documentary or there was another documentary on the 808 where, you know, they kind of influenced all the music that was coming, you know, like I think a lot of those early songs that came out, the 808 songs were on Adam, the other Adam, Ad Rock's 808. He went and bought, you know, he went to buy a guitar, but he saw 808 and bought it, and that it was, he brought it to the studio, and that's where all these songs that came out in that era, which really influenced this era, you know, well, everything's 808 now, and like that's when people first started messing with it. You saw the progression where they started putting distortion on the 808 or compressing it a certain way, and now that's, I mean, you're talking like 30, 40 years later, that's all anyone's doing, and it all came out of that. You know, it all came out of Rick Rubin, that studio, and people, you know, using that, even his drum machine. So yeah, it's crazy to see the history of all that.
So
insane.
So you have your new production company coming on. Anytime you come out with a new album and you finish it with this, does it? I guess I'm just wondering, like, once you make something as your new production company, what the cycle is on how it gets put out to the world.
I mean, we usually try to work with artists who are working, you know, who are touring, who have relationships with labels, you know, who have resources. So usually they're all ready for something specifically.
Okay.
The Rast one was different because, Ras is kind of re-emerging, but there's been a ton of interest from the beginning with him. I think, because I think the Dub All Stars, like I said, I think there's a hole there in where people want that kind of classic Dub All Stars sound, Trailer Ras, those songs. And so that one I kind of, well, and even that one, Miguel kind of originally reached out to me and said, do this, I'll pay you to do it or whatever. We never really did that though. I just started working on it, and then it was like, oh, well, I'm just a partner on the album, and we got labels involved and stuff like that. But usually we're working with people who have output, or it's just easy to put stuff out yourself. So I mean, we work with artists that have enough pull where theoretically we can release it ourselves and still do something. But we haven't really done that. There's always a release opportunity of some sort with the artists that we're working with.
Right.
Just other quick questions that I'm sure some of the listeners would be interested in knowing is what DAW are you primarily using with your production work? Are you mostly using Pro Tools?
Yeah, I use Pro Tools. Uses Ableton. I mean, a lot of people use Ableton. I have Ableton, but I've used Pro Tools so long that it's hard for me to take the I don't know, the flow of Ableton. I've produced like maybe 3 or 4 songs on it, and then it just sits there. But yeah, it's hard for me to get downtime, to want to take the downtime to learn something new. So yeah, I'm a dinosaur. I'm still in Pro Tools.
Pro Tools, it's still it's up to date. It's current to 20, or you have to use like an older computer, or I'm
Oh no,
only asking because I don't really know. They're all new. Okay.
I mean they're constantly coming out with new versions with, it has all the kind of time stretching and things that the other like Ableton, they'll do their own version of that. But yeah, no, it's up to date. That's one of the things too about production. I think that I went kicking and screaming that you kind of just at some point, if you're going to do production in the modern era, you're going to be a computer guy, and you're going to be constantly buying software, updating, like I'm at the point now where I just update my computer reflexively every 2 years.
Right.
Like I just gave up. It's just like, no, this is just how it happens. Like you have to stay up on software. You're constantly downloading updates, it's upgrading your computer.
That's what we do
it's
too.
a technology game. Yeah, you have to. And you at some point you just go, okay, like that's the part you don't want to do. I don't want to be a computer guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I love what the computer does for what I'm doing, but I don't want to be like, oh man, I maxed out the RAM and got the 8 core. You don't want to be that guy. And I never want to be that guy with gear of any type, like with instruments. But now I've just conceded on all of it. Like it's important. You can't resist any part of it. So it's like if you're going to do it at the level that it needs to be done, when you're going to compete with people, you're going to have all the newest stuff all the time. Otherwise, you're just going to be at a disadvantage. You're going to have to know what everyone's using. You're going to have to, and I do the same thing with instruments now. I just collect instruments, whatever the most recorded guitars. Like I think I have 9 or 10 guitars now, preamps, everything. It's just like, if that's how the sound is getting made, you have to have it. None of this like, oh, well, it sounds kind of like it. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Do you have any favorite plugins that are like go-to plugins that you like to use?
Like instrument or like compressor or
Just
like processors?
Any in general. The ones I see all the time that people use are the Chris Lord algae ones.
Yeah, I've been getting lazy and using a lot of those because they're kind of these all-in-one, like the Chris Lord algae or the Jack Joseph Puig. All these guys have 3 names. I think if I got to give myself a third name so that they give me a
3
plugin suite.
They have 3 names. It's legit. I love it.
Yeah, that's how you get Waves to give you a plugin suite. But yeah, I've actually been using those because I've been trying to spend less time. Like, before I thought like, oh, I got to use like an LA2A compressor and 1176 and EQ and do it all. Now, and now I try to get sounds really quick. So I'm trying to more like, I'll pop that thing up and just on a vocal and just go, oh, there's 5 sliders. Try to do things really quickly, especially because a lot of times, like, you don't end up mixing this stuff. You just want it to sound a certain way to pitch the idea. I don't know. I have so many plugins. It's ridiculous. Like Because like I said, at this point, I just concede that you just buy everything if it's decent. Like I just don't, like before I used to hem and haw and like, oh, it's too much like something else I have. Now if it's like something people use or if it's something reasonable, I just go, I need to have it. I work in the industry, you know.
You're sending stuff back and forth to a lot of people, right? So you
Yeah.
got to be able to turn it on, right? So just
Yeah,
stay compatible.
people send stems that you don't really have to, just audio stems. People are pretty good at that. But yeah, it does happen where you get sessions. And sometimes I'll just buy it if there's something in a session I don't have. I'm like, well, they used it and it sounded cool, so I'll just buy it. You know, because plugins are pretty affordable. You know, when you think about it. Like I try not to get stingy. You know, and because it's hard when you like get something and you don't use it. You know, you're like, oh man, I wasted
Right.
$100-$200. You know, and I'm not even using this thing. But I kind of just look at it as the cost of doing business, because if I end up using it in a song anywhere along the way, and when you're just trying to get inspiration, it's like you just have to, like, if something doesn't sound right, I just need a million options to make it sound right. Like because I have to keep going until it does. You know, if I'm not getting the sound, if I don't get the sound direct, I got to mic it up. If I got to put it through a different processor, I've got to have all those options. I got to be able to pick up another guitar, put up a different pedal, put it through a different preamp, because I can't just go, well, I don't know, couldn't do it.
I think for me, it's remembering that you have it, right? It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
got that new one that I just bought. You know, it's just having too much, I think, is sometimes would be my downfall, is that it's like, oh, I forgot to even own that shit. I could have used that.
Oh no, totally. But that's, I just think when you're reaching for anything, you know, you'll find it. You know, that processor that didn't work, anything, or it's weird. You know, you'll like. I think it's so horrible, because I was talking to someone about this the other day. You know, you'll use one thing for a while and then you'll just shift to something else and you'll like that, and then you'll shift and you're like, am I using the best? I don't even know if I'm using the best thing. Then you hear an old song you did and it's like, oh, that was really cool, I should use that again. It's almost random. But I suppose, you know, if it always ends up working, it's like, well, it's just good that I have all this stuff and it works, you know, because yeah, you can't, like, the kind of person I am, I never like to spend money like on something like I might not use.
Right.
But you know, you can't think like that. You know, you when you're doing music when you get out of the idea that it's a hobby or whatever, it's just like your job. You know, when you're working, you have to get the job done come hell or high water, even if it's, you know, whatever, like, and you waste time, you'll spend all day like and get 2 hours of work done. Well, that's how it works in the studio too. Sometimes you have to sit there for 8 hours doing garbage, getting nowhere, to get that hour of productivity. And you can't go like, oh, I'm just not feeling it today, I'll come back tomorrow. It's like, no, you've got to sit here for 8 hours and do the time, and, you know, and spend the money, you know, just the way you'd invest in a business, you know.
Right.
You
I just
just
spent
gotta look.
$150 on. I spent $150 on needles the other day because all my needles busted
Oh
up.
man. Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Did they even, can you even buy those? What do they even sell anymore? Like, they don't make like the
Yeah.
M447s or anything, right?
No.
Yeah.
Actually, these are vinyls. It's Orifone vinyls.
Orifone. They're like the only game in town right now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's all you see.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
You can find
well,
like
then that are
Chinese
phased.
knockoff. Yeah, the Chinese knockoff of the 447s, but even those are kind of hard to come by. It used to be when the
Yeah.
447s were, you know, still being made, that you could buy those Chinese knockoff ones for like $5 to $10, and now they're like $40 just to get the knockoff
Yeah.
ones.
I still have that stuff. I was looking the other day because I was like, oh man, it's so weird how the gear is going away.
Yeah.
You know, because I have an M447 that's relatively new, but I was like, okay, so when this thing goes out, like, I can't get a replacement stylus. Probably that thing's just dust.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
toast.
you'll just have to pay a premium.
These are good though, man. I would say this: the vinyls, VN. Oh, is it VNL? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oriphones.
Yeah, I was curious about that because I think, and they're the just all in one, no head shell, right?
No, it's actually the exact same as you need a head shell. It's pretty much the same as a 447.
Can I buy them pre-mounted?
That's what I said.
Yeah, that
I
is
was
pretty
pissed. I was
much
like, I
that.
gotta mount them.
Dude, my hands
I
are
was like,
too big with
"Mount
like
'em?"
you're sitting in there with the little screwdriver trying to put those like cables in, dude. I gotta get
It
like
is a
my
pain in
daughter
the
to
butt.
do it or something.
I'm playing tonight, and I'm like, fuck, dude. I don't know that I'm gonna use these tonight, but I have the phase as well. So, have you fucked with that yet? Phase?
No, what is that?
Oh, it's basically like a digital
I think I
needle.
have them right here. No, I don't have them right
It's
there.
a digital
like
needle.
This, yeah, it's like this little puck that's like not even this big, and it sits on the right in the middle of the record, and it's wild how it works. So if you're using like Serato, you just
A
have
laser.
to plug the USB into your into Serato, and it syncs with it's wild. It's wild. But it works, and it works pretty well too for the most part.
Really? Yeah, I've been out of the loop. I've been on the DJ stuff.
No,
But
man, it's
we
all
got
good. We got a couple last questions, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, these are just
Sure.
some funny last questions. One is and since you're out in Drew's area, I'm interested to hear the answer to this too for the next time I come back. But a go-to food spot of yours, somewhere you like to eat that it could be anything, but just like a go-to.
Oh, that's tough, man. We just came out of COVID. There was no go-to.
No go-to.
I mean, I traditionally I've always liked Tantalum, but now I've been going to Bamboo Club lately. So I'm into tiki. They do good tiki. So.
Oh, all right. That's good to
Have you
know.
have you been there
He
over on Anaheim and
Oh yeah,
Redondo
yeah.
area? Yeah, that place is good.
The owner was going had a kid in class with my daughter, so we would see them all the time.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Fuse was out here, and he's like, "Take me to all the best spots," and I'm going, man, I'm like you. I'm like, I don't know. I eat the same dumb shit all the time. So,
Well, everything kind of changed after COVID, like like a lot of places went, or some places went out, and every place seems different because I think all the staff like ended up leaving, because they were couldn't work forever,
yeah,
and so staff's all different, and even kind of like, so yeah, it's kind of weird time right now, but
yeah.
yeah, Bamboo Club's good.
Honestly, dude, I've been a giant fan of yours for a long time. I've always come out and support you. Thank you so much for doing this. It means the world, dude. Is there anything you could tell everybody to check out? I know you have a new single with Doghouse and Schwayze, Surfer Girl, the Hirie with Matisyahu, Blacklist. Any new tracks or just anywhere people could find you, or anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. Check those out. I mean, the Blacklist single is out. The full length album comes out next month. Hirie, that's good. That's a good one. The album's really cool. Surfer Girls album comes out, I think, on September 16th, and the single Doghouse is out now. You can always check out my my SoundCloud, which I'm sure is it's just
We'll make sure to link it.
soundcloud.com/jungle Josh. And then if I can give you a link to my playlist, I have playlists on Spotify and Apple Music with some of my releases. People can check them there.
Hell yeah, dude. If you guys aren't, please make sure to follow my homie Jungle Josh. He's crushing the game. He's got so much stuff coming out. So thank you, dude. Thank you. Honestly, I can't thank you enough
Thank
for
you
being
so
on
much
here.
for coming on and
It's
chatting
an
with
awesome
us. And
episode. Yeah.
yeah.
We're stoked.
Oh, thank you, man. It was great hanging with you guys. Good to talk to you, Drew. It's been a long time, man. We got to hang out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come
Yeah,
see
dude,
you
we gotta hang out.
at Bungalow.
Dude, I owe you some drinks, man. I promise. I'm gonna send you some shit
I'll take
after
you
we
up
get
on
off, but yeah. Dude, seriously, I mean, as many as you want. It's my treat. Like, if anytime you want to come out, I'll lace you up as much as you want to drink.
Word, I'm in.
Or maybe we got to go to. Maybe I got to meet you up at where was I saw one of the videos you posted, Ross one. It's that spot in Huntington or in Huntington Sunset. They always have the reggae bands.
Oh, Sea Lakes.
Yeah, you go there very often.
Yeah, whenever there's a good act playing, yeah, I like it.
Okay.
Hang out on the beach, have some drinks. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
maybe we'll meet up there one sometime.
Oh yeah, I'll let you know next time.
Yeah, that'd be dope. Hell yeah. All right.
Word up.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Once again, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it so much. And to everybody listening, until next time, we'll see you.
Peace.